You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.
This is the LA Football Show here on the LA Football Network. Welcome in to the Trojan Huddle, you Fight On Trojan fans, as we get into this big USC victory over the Arizona Wildcats. I know it was a back and forth game, probably some concerning things for some fans out there. Overall, I was very pleased, but we are going to get all into it. Joined as always by the Madman, my co-host Jamal Madney. What's up, brother? Happy victory Fight On Monday. How you doing?
Doing well, Ryan. Happy victory to you as well. Great game to talk about and a lovely weekend and excited to get into it. Mondays just feel better. They taste better. They smell better. The colors are more vibrant when you're coming off a victory. There's something special about being able to bask in a victory for that first 24 to 48 hours. It's very special, and we're sort of living through that right now.
Exactly. So big win down at the desert. 45-37 was your final out there. Some historic performances. We will get all into it. The Trojans move back into the top 10, sitting at 9th right now in the AP poll. When does the is tomorrow the first college football playoff rankings? Is that when they start?
Tomorrow, the college football rankings debut. So that should be very exciting to see. I think there's an expectation, obviously, of 3 Pac-12 teams in the top 10, with the 2 LA schools being there, and it's setting up. Obviously we're talking all about Arizona, but it's hard not to have that one eye on November 19th. It's like one of those great football movies, Ryan, where the 2 great teams have to play each other, and each sequence is they're winning each game, but they have their eye on the big game. It kind of feels like even the Magic and Byrd days, where the Lakers would play a team, but always have an eye on what the Celtics were doing, and the Celtics would do the same. Starting to get that feel here where we got one eye on November 19th.
Yeah, it's going to be a special game. So I'm curious, you mentioned it, AP right now, Oregon 8, USC 9, UCLA 10. I'm curious if that'll hold true with the college football rankings, playoff rankings, or if those will be shuffled or fallen down a little bit. We will obviously see tomorrow and get everyone updated on that. But today, this is what we have to go off of, and we have to go off of this game. Make sure to like and subscribe to the show wherever you listen. All podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, Google Play. You can just search Believe in LA Football or just LA Football Show to find us. Obviously on YouTube, LAFB Network. And for the Trojan side, Trojans LAFB is what you can search. And obviously the website, LAFBnetwork.com, your destination for Los Angeles football. Show, as always, brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today on your mobile device or desktop. Use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. You still got a little less than half the college football season, still lots of NFL games. So if you haven't gotten into the betting game, now is the time to do it. BetOnline.ag, promo code BELIEVE, 50% welcome bonus. That's free money in your account when you sign up. All right, so 45-37, back and forth game, offensive juggernaut yet again from this USC offense. We knew Arizona was going to pose a threat on offense with their young, exciting transfer quarterback. Obviously, at receiver, they have a special player who had a career game, one of the best touchdown catches I've seen in quite some time. I thought the Trojans' rush defense played fairly well. It was the pass defense, like we expected, that was going to get torn apart. Overall thoughts from this one, Jamal, before we kind of break it down piece by piece?
Ryan, I think the one thing I'll take away is, you and I predicted this game pretty spot on, if I may say so myself. We broke it down, and you had predicted, obviously, Caleb was going to have his best game as a Trojan. That was true. And ultimately, I predicted the final score would be 45-37, and it was 44-38. So well done, my friend. I think we're getting better at this moving forward in terms of having a finger on the pulse of this USC team. The biggest takeaway for me, the bottom line up front for me, is how special Caleb Williams is. This is one of those games where you send to the NFL and say, this is what this guy is capable of at the next level. Ryan, you and I have talked about this on a number of shows over the years. To me, the greatest barometer of an NFL quarterback is when you no longer have advantages at the skill positions. When you don't have advantages in the offensive line, how do you perform? When you look at the great NFL quarterbacks of today, the Rodgers and the Mahomes and the Josh Allens and the Lamar Jacksons, none of them went to blue chip schools where they had all of these advantages. They had to earn their keep. They had to earn those wins on the field. And that mentality, that skill translates to the next level. Caleb Williams did not have his two best wide receivers, did not have his best offensive lineman in Andrew Voorhees, and arguably didn't have his best defensive player in linebacker Eric Gentry, and still topped the 381 yards and 5 touchdowns that he had against Utah with 411 yards and 5 touchdowns against Arizona. He is so special, and this will be the game that I will remember as the true coming out party nationally for Caleb Williams over the course of his next year and a half at USC. Arizona had no answer for him. We expected it, but just his command of the offense without having his two best guys. And by the way, Ryan, they lost Mario Williams in warmups. I mean, who sort of tweaks something in warmups, the sudden change there to then say, okay, I got to go to Tahj Washington. I got to go to Brenden Rice. I got to go to our guy, Mr. Ford, Kyle Ford, who finally has emerged. We called that one for several weeks as well. But just to have the poise to put up a prolific 45 points, over 500 yards of offense, and then to have that quarterback keeper on 4th and 1 to seal that deal. And you saw him get up and be so animated and so fired up. It showed the competitor that he is on the field, the talent that he has, but also the leadership that he has off the field. This was the Caleb Williams show, and we have to begin the conversation there. Yeah,
I mean, he's such a special player, such a special human too. I mean, you see the passion, you see the leadership. You hit all the key points there, but I think what he was able to do from a statistical standpoint, obviously missing his two best guys, as you alluded to, but then just on the leadership side and, never losing any sort of momentum or anything when the defense kind of let them get back into it. They had an early lead. They come clawing back to, a potential 2-point conversion to tie the game. They end up not converting that. But then SC just, the offense answers right back. And they always had an answer when they needed it. And it was, just such a fun game for me to watch. I thought the Arizona crowd was really fun. The Zona Zoo showed out for that team was, we talked about how, yes, Arizona was a 1-win team last year, but USC was only a 4-win team last year. These are two very different programs in 2022 than they were just a year ago. And Arizona is a budding, young, rising school program that is going to be, I think, a top 5, top 4 program in the Pac-12 next year. So yes, I know a lot of fans out there thought USC should have absolutely pummeled Arizona because of the history of that program, but I didn't see it that way. And, this defense is not a lights out defense. I was on live with Alfred Rowe, talking about it after the game. This isn't anything surprising. Like, we knew what this defense was before the season started, and now they were missing, a bevy of key players on that side of the ball. And so you knew you had to get 4 stops, and that's what they got. They got the 1 pick, they got 2 3 and outs, and they got 1 turnover on downs. So they got the 4 stops needed, and they got the win. So yes, there needs to be still improvement moving forward. Yes, there absolutely needs to still be adjustments made on defense. Yes, the scheme that Alex Grinch puts out there may not be, the greatest scheme for this defense or for the talent that they have, especially with the injuries up front. And yes, the recruiting was definitely offensive focused in this first year. But one thing I think that we need to remember, and Alfred pointed this out, is that yes, the team in Lincoln Riley says that they're competing for a championship this year. Yes, we've seen the culture shift and the improvement in spades, but this is still a rebuilding year, technically. And the fact that this team is 7-1, 9th in the nation, the offense is humming. Caleb Williams is, in my opinion, probably the best quarterback, or at least top 2 or 3, depending on who you like better in the country. Yes, Travis Dye is one of the best running backs in the Pac-12 and the country. I think we have to be very pleased with where this team is at. And I think the fact that it started 6-0 and then we got this hype really early on, then it's automatically like we're back. The 05 Pete Carroll days are back. We're not quite there yet, but this is a special team. This is a special season, and they still have everything in front of them to actually get the job done in year 1. which I think is so fun to watch. So it was just a great game. And last thing I'll say about Caleb Williams is just on that last play, we've seen some great players, Jamal, in Los Angeles, the Kobe Bryants. I could just list them all. We have obviously tons of history around great immortalized players in the city of Los Angeles. And that last play may not be one that a lot of people talk about. They're going to talk about the 5 touchdown passes, the 411 yards, but 4th and 1 to ice the game. And if you don't get it, you give Arizona a pretty short field to go down and score when your defense can't stop them. And you call a shotgun option play, and you watch that play, you knew there was no way Caleb Williams was handing that ball off. He was ending the game with the ball in his hands. And that is what you want from your star player, from your quarterback, from your leader, from your thought provoker, from everything that Caleb Williams is. That's what you want. You want that Kobe mentality, the ball in his hands into the game, that Magic mentality, the LeBron, however you want to compare it to. And he showed that on that play. Got the push from his lineman, got the first down, jumped up with excitement. So to me, that was the play of the year so far for Caleb Williams, even with all the highlight reel throws, the whoop stop against Arizona State on the sideline, all these fun things. But that was the play that I was like, this Caleb Williams kid is special, not only talent-wise, but he has that grit that they've been lacking since those glory days. And now it's back at the Coliseum, and just couldn't be more thrilled for him and this team, and excited to see how they continue to develop and improve. And guess what? When they get 2 of the best receivers in the country back, hopefully in a week.
Yeah, Ryan, I think you said it so well. And you touched on so many different points. I think there's one, I want to start with a couple of things that you said early. And that is, I felt concerned about going into this game against Arizona because I understood what Arizona is putting together at the skill positions. Jayde De Laura, they've got 3 unbelievable wide receivers who are all going to play on Sundays and get a shot in the NFL. And I think people don't realize how good a coach Jedd Fisch is. I'm going to call it right here and now, Ryan, and we can look back on this 17, 18 months from now and see if this was a good take or not. Jedd Fisch is going to be the 2023 Pac-12 Coach of the Year. You can put that on tape right now. I have firm confidence in that taking place. He is one of the 2 or 3 best coaches in the West Coast. And so having to deal with that, going on the road, you said it best, that this team, and we talked to this with Lincoln Riley at Pac-12 Media Day, that we know you have recruited, you have utilized the transfer portal on the offensive side at the skill positions. But how do you see the trenches? How do you see the defensive side of the ball? And remember, he said that was a great question, and that's still going to be a work in progress. And look, Corey Foreman was banged up. He didn't even play in this game. And so we have to sort of understand the expectations. We cannot just think Lincoln Riley comes in and just magically, boom, everything's going to turn around. That's where the peak is going to be in year 2, year 3, year 4. But right now, this is still a work in progress. And so to be 6-1 as a work in progress, that's what makes things so exciting. And to talk about Caleb, Ryan, the great players have a way of impacting the game, even when they are trying to be defended. They're the great players, even in basketball and football, they have an impact on the game because you're so focused on trying to stop them. You're so focused on trying to get into their head that you get out of your game. And so the great ones have a direct impact on the game. They also have an indirect impact on the game. And for me, there were 2 key swing moments in this game. And one showed Caleb's direct impact and the other showed his indirect impact. The first key moment was 9 minutes to go in the third quarter. It was 24-16 SC. It was still back and forth. Arizona had the ball. There was a 3 consecutive play sequence that completely altered the game. Remember, De Laura, Arizona was moving the ball at will. De Laura scrambles to the left, goes down that left sideline for about a 40-yard scramble, knocks out that SC defender, the secondary defender on that sideline. Place is going crazy. It's 1st and 10 Arizona inside the SC 40 with all the momentum. Very next play, De Laura throws the pick. SC returns it back inside of midfield. And then that's when Caleb, the very next play after that, finds Tahj Washington. That beautiful inside out cut, makes a juke at the 6-yard line, walks into the end zone. That makes it 31-16, gives SC the cushion that ultimately they could use over the next quarter. The other key moment in this game was 31-29. SC had the ball inside of Arizona's 30-yard line. Ryan, it was 3rd and 8. And Caleb rolls out to his right, can't really find a guy. It's incomplete. And Arizona gets flagged for a personal foul, unnecessary roughness / unsportsmanlike. And that was a direct result of that Arizona linebacker sort of knocking Caleb back a little bit on the sideline and jawing with him, because he got so tightly wound with Caleb's performance that he wanted to get inside Caleb's head. And that was a stop. And SC would have kicked a field goal, maybe maybe doesn't make it, but it's still a 1-possession game, very much a ball game. But the fact that you're so focused on Caleb Williams, even when in the rare occurrences where you can stop him, he's so in your head and he's such a focal point for you defensively that you get out of character and do some sort of professional, undisciplined things in terms of behavior. First down SC, the very next play is that inside slant to Ford, pushes that over to 2 possessions, and Arizona never could get back on schedule within a possession again. So one was his direct impact. The other was his indirect impact. He is this program. He is this overall franchise. And it's because of his greatness that we're even having this conversation about Lincoln Riley in year 1 and the possibilities. If Caleb Williams is not the quarterback of this team, this is a 3 or 4 loss team on paper when you look at the roster. Caleb Williams allows an 8-win team to potentially be a 12-win team. And that is the lineage of the great quarterbacks in the NFL. Those quarterbacks that can take 4 or 5-win teams and turn them into 10-win teams. Those quarterbacks that can take 7 or 8-win teams, turn them into 11 or 12-win teams. So that is the blueprint. That is the recipe for all NFL GMs to know about how special this kid is.
Yeah, and I this is not, it's going to sound homerish, but I think it's so close. So you could argue any of them. But that is why, even being a sophomore a year younger, I right now would take Caleb Williams over Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. As great as those 2 QBs are, and they're probably a little more polished, probably a little more talent right now. But you look at everything they have around them, including some defensive talent and players. Caleb doesn't have that. And, he's right up there with them in terms of rankings, obviously in terms of statistical categories and stuff like that. So I think when you look at the overall body of work, what Caleb's doing is so impressive and so special. And that's why I just think that the ceiling is still not even met with him. And we still have a whole nother season with him next year after he'll only be a true junior. So very exciting. I think one other point to make about him, without your 2 top receivers, 10 receivers had a catch in this game. So spread the ball around. Some unfortunate, I don't want to, I hate bagging on players, but critical drops from Brenden Rice. Unfortunately, Rice, I think, has shown that he's a very talented route runner. He has great size and speed and intangibles, but unfortunately has had some bad drops so far this season. So, maybe he needs to get with Pops a little bit and fix the hands there, which I think he'll get right. Cause I think he's going to have, and they're going to need to have him have some big games down the stretch. If these injuries linger with Williams and Addison, or just if they're getting double teamed and we need someone else to step up, like our guy Kyle Ford did. So pumped to see him. What a great kid, great young man. Get to see his breakout game. And, he just seemed so thrilled after the game in his interview. And obviously one of the big things we've loved about him, Jamal, and I've always loved about him, is with his journey as a player, being a top recruit out of Centennial Corona, 5-star kid, came in as a true freshman, was expected to have somewhat of an impact. I know when he came in, there was the vaunted receiver room that USC had, but just injuries, just couldn't break through the depth chart. And he never got down, never thought about transferring, wanted to be here at USC. Even when coming into this year, looking like, all right, maybe this is my shot. Well, then transfers Mario Williams, then transfers Jordan Addison. He gets buried down the depth chart again. Still has that just lunch pail mentality. Do my job. It'll happen for me when it happens for me. Always put the team first. Then he has his breakout game and he gets asked about it. And he says, I'm just happy I was able to contribute and help my team win. Like, that is such a humble kid that I'm so thrilled for, that cares more about the team than his own statistics. And he's a guy that, when it's said and done, Jamal, he may have 300 yards of total receiving, and he'll probably get drafted just because of that size, because of that mentality. And he'll probably still be a late round, draft pick that some team in the NFL gives a shot just because of the intangibles and also because of his mentality and work ethic. So thrilled for him, super pumped for him.
Ryan, there's three things I want to mention there, and I want to start with Ford because I think you nailed it there. There was a real emphasis you could see with Lincoln Riley trying to get Kyle Ford the ball, in particular in that red zone. We saw the one touchdown on the inside slant, but remember early in the game, in the first quarter, he nearly caught a second touchdown on that right corner of the end zone. His toe was just out and, prevented that from happening. But Kyle Ford is finally actualizing the vision that I know you and I thought for him at the start of this season of being that intermediate guy. When you have the home run threat in Mario and when you have this proficient route runner in Addison, but both of those guys are susceptible to getting bodied up. And even if you look down the USC receiving room, the one glitch is they don't have enough size. Kyle Ford is the most unique tool in the Swiss Army knife that Lincoln Riley plays with. And you saw that the way he was able to shield his body and get those yards inside the red zone, a la Gronk, a la Antonio Gates, a la Travis Kelce, and be able to do that so prolifically, I think was really huge. The second point I really want to point out here, Ryan, is have got to give massive credit to Tahj Washington.
Yep.
Tahj Washington stepped in to that wide receiver one role. Tahj Washington came into this game with 0 touchdowns on the year and had 2 massive touchdowns. Obviously, the long one that we talked about that really swung the game in SC's favor in the second half. And then that beautiful out route, that 6-yard out route in traffic. He was able to show that he could catch the balls in traffic as well as be that home run threat. He has been such a phenomenal blocker, Ryan, over the course of this season, opening up convoys on some of these screen plays to Addison, some of these bubble screen concepts, these quick out throws that Lincoln Riley has been using in lieu of a run game. And we've talked all about Caleb, and we've had segments on Travis Dye. Tahj Washington has not gotten enough credit this season for how valuable he has been to this USC team for doing the little things, doing the dirty work. And I think the difference between him and a Brenden Rice is Tahj Washington's ability to block, his ability to read coverages and be able to take up space for those other guys. It has separated him from Brenden Rice, has separated him from Bryant Jr., who's ultimately now having to transfer and so forth. And now to see him actually get the statistics, which are the more obvious proxies to the casual fan, so happy for him. USC does not win that game without Tahj Washington. He was absolutely phenomenal. And then we've talked a lot about the offense. I have to give, as crazy as it sounds, Alex Grinch a little bit of credit, not necessarily for success, but at least the willingness to try new things. And what I saw was a different scheme with USC. They ran a very nuanced formation, Ryan, for the vast majority of that game, this 4-1-6. He had 4 linemen. Tuipulotu was sort of his one hybrid, linebacker, if you will, and then drop 6 back. And then sometimes pre-snap, he would bring 2 guys up from the secondary to have more of a traditional sort of 4-3 look. And then sometimes he would sag Tuipulotu all the way back, and it was sort of 7 guys back in coverage. So he tried a couple of different looks because he got absolutely destroyed in those zone concepts, having those linebackers on Dalton Kincaid in the previous week. So at least Grinch is trying different things, giving different looks. And that confusion led to the one interception that De Laura had. It wasn't sustained success, but at least Grinch is trying different concepts. He has Cal, he has Colorado the next 2 weeks. He has more opportunity to tinker with things to really find the right buttons against UCLA. But it's at least good to see that Grinch is trying different things and not resigning himself to this just being a team that has to win a shootout. So the fact that he's trying these different concepts with the personnel that he has, I think is very encouraging and also not being talked about enough because the success hasn't been there yet.
That's a great point. And one thing everyone needs to remember and realize, and, call it what it is. You can say it's a mistake in recruiting or whatever. But even some of those big gash runs that De Laura had, who's so special with the ball in his hands, and you can see everyone knew like when they play a true running quarterback, there were going to be some issues. But there was definitely some schemes there where he had a QB spy, and it was Nomura who was filling in for Eric Gentry. And unfortunately, Nomura just read it wrong. I mean, there was a one big play from De Laura, I think a 40-yard run up the left side where he stepped right, and Nomura got lost. Got lost. And so then De Laura was able to break it. And so schematically, that was correct. And had Eric Gentry been in there, that may have ended up being either a no gain, a loss, or a very minimal game. But because of, again, I hate bagging on kids, but just a lesser talent playing that position who read it incorrectly, it becomes a huge play. And everyone sees the result, like you're saying, and says, man, why are we not having a QB spy? And it's like, there was a QB spy. You just didn't play it right. And so unfortunately, sometimes you can only get so far on the talent you have. And that's a whole nother issue with recruiting and getting into that. But I agree with you that at least we saw some differences. Got to give a shout out to Bryson Shaw, who was named just this morning the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Week with that, I think 5 tackles and that huge interception that was so important in this game. And obviously counts as one of 4 stops that they needed. So, they got some things done. And that'll bring us to our question of the show, Jamal, before we wrap up, brought to you by our friends at Liquid Death. Drinking a nice can right now. If you're seeing these tall cans in the water aisle, they are not beer. They are not energy drinks. It is mountain spring water straight from the Alps of Switzerland. I'm not sure if it's actually Switzerland, but it's from the Alps. That's what they tell us. And it's delicious. And they are called Liquid Death because it will not only murder your thirst, but they are doing all they can to kill plastic bottle solution. They do that by donating a percentage of every can sold to end plastic bottle solution. So head to your local grocery store, convenience store, Ralph's, Vaughn's, Albertsons, 7-Eleven, Whole Foods, wherever you get your groceries, and pick up a case of Liquid Death or use the locator tool. It is liquiddeath.com/LAFB to find the nearest location to you. They have natural spring water. They have sparkling. They have flavored sparkling, of course, used with all natural flavors. So it's great product, good water, and for a good cause. Can't go better than that. So liquiddeath.com/LAFB. Tell them your friends at the LA Football Network sent you. So the question brought to you by Liquid Death. A lot of injuries. We mentioned Eric Gentry, Corey Foreman banged up. I know Shane Lee played, but he's been not 100% healthy. We saw Calen Bullock get banged up, which would have been a horrible loss, but he came back in the game late there. Obviously on offense, the 2 receivers, Andrew Voorhees. So who is the most important injured player right now that needs to come back for this team to truly make a run, and especially looking at that November 19th game against UCLA? Well, they will need every player to win that one. Text Trojans to 31032. Let us know the most important injured player right now that needs to come back for this team to succeed. Obviously, all of them are important, but who's the most important? Trojans, 31032. Jamal, though, I'll let you answer. Who do you think out of all the injured USC Trojans is the most important?
Ryan, to me, it's sort of, there's an argument to be made for any one of them, but there's one gentleman who is more unique than anyone else on this team and more unique than any of his replacements, and that's Eric Gentry. This game, USC-UCLA, not to get too far ahead, ultimately, it's going to come down between Caleb, Dye, and Gentry, and DTR, Charbonnet, Latu. Between who has the better collection of games with those 3 guys, that's ultimately who's going to win the game. Because Caleb has shown you that he doesn't need wide receiver 1 and 2 to be great. And the depth at receiver is so special. And we've seen Shane Lee gut it out and still be about 80-85% of what he is. And that doesn't really have a material impact in the game. And we've seen different secondary players emerge week over week with timely interceptions. But there's no other guy who's a 6'6" linebacker who can do so many different things in terms of spying the quarterback, dropping back in coverage, changing eye levels of quarterbacks, picking up a wide receiver, picking up a running back, sliding back and defending a tight end. The versatility of Gentry is absolutely significant. And so for me, USC cannot beat UCLA. As great as Caleb Williams is, USC cannot beat UCLA without Eric Gentry 100% healthy and on the field. So for me, it's that 6'6" young man.
Yeah, I don't want to cop out, but that's the answer. I mean, it's the absolute truth. And it's because the offense showed you what they can still do without their top two receivers. I mean, the offense as a whole, over 600 yards. Travis Dye, over 100 yards receiving. Austin Jones had some play. Raleek Brown had the first touchdown of the game, receiving out of the backfield. And obviously what we saw from Kyle Ford, Tahj Washington, and company. So as great as Addison and Mario Williams are, they are absolutely important, no doubt about it. But yeah, Gentry is the most important injured player that needs to come back if they really want to, make a run at this thing, which they are doing, but really want a shot against UCLA, statistically, whose offense actually has been better than USC's. That's how good the UCLA offense has been. That's how good Zach Charbonnet is. That's how good DTR is. And Gentry is a huge reason. And I would argue Calen Bullock is the other big piece, but he is not injured. So those are your two guys on defense they absolutely have to have for that game. And I love that triage comparison of Caleb and you mentioned Gentry, and then on the UCLA side, Latu, and the running back and quarterback there. So Gentry's the answer, but we want to know from you guys. Once again, text Trojans 31032, but jump back in, Jamal. Look like you had another thing to add.
No, I think it's spot on, Ryan, and that's the key, right? And I think as much as complimentary as also we've been of different players over the course of this Saturday, there's one thing we also need to point out. I don't think USC's run defense is any better. They just haven't played elite running backs the last couple of games. Remember, Tavion Thomas was out for Utah, and that kind of became a shootout game. Arizona is very pass heavy in terms of the things that Jedd Fisch wants to do. The game before against Washington State, they are very pass heavy. And now 2 weeks in, you have to play not only the best running back in the Pac-12, but the best running back in the country. So the run defense is going to be really strained. The pass defense is going to be really strained. That's why the answer is Gentry, because he can impact the pass defense as well as the rush defense. And when you talk about our 4 stops rule, Ryan, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, that game, the November 19th game, it might be the 2 stops rule. And so the over-under on that game is going to be absolutely insane with those 2 prolific offenses. So it is absolutely essential to have Gentry on the field by then.
Yep. So hopefully, I know it was close for him to go this game, so hopefully we'll see him back next week, but we'll keep everyone posted. I'm sure we'll hear from Lincoln Riley in tomorrow's practice or Wednesday with an update there. But yeah, great win for USC. Moved to 7-1, 9th in the AP poll. We'll see tomorrow where they land on the college football playoff poll. But thrilled where this team is and excited to see how that ceiling can keep rising. So, Jamal, anything else to add before we wrap this show up?
Excited, and Trojan fans, don't be too high, don't be too low in terms of the rankings that come out tomorrow. There's some interesting arguments to be made. Those folks, the College Football Selection Show looks at different things like resume. There's kind of it wouldn't actually shock me, Ryan, if in the first ranking, UCLA is ranked higher than USC by a spot just because of resume. But it's not going to mean anything. It's going to be settled on the field. And bottom line is, if USC wins out, they're going to be sitting there as a 1-loss Pac-12 champion team with a guaranteed berth in the Rose Bowl and possibly more. So it's fun to talk about the rankings tomorrow, Trojan fans, but don't lose sight of the fact that USC controls its own destiny regardless of what the rankings say tomorrow.
Yep. I've said, last thing I'll say, and I truly believe the winner of the Pac-12 has a really good shot to get in the playoff, even though no matter what, it'll be a 1-loss team, unless something chaotic happens and it ends up being a 3-loss team, wins the Pac-12 somehow. Like, these teams just go on a streak. But I think it's, that game is going to be 2 1-loss teams, and the winner will be a 1-loss team. And I think they have a really good shot of making that college football playoff, just because I think the Pac-12 is a lot stronger this year than it's been. And they played some out-of-conference games I think were good overall. So great win. Excited about the future. Once again, text Trojans to 31032. Join our USC community. Love to hear from you guys there. For Jamal Madney, I'm Ryan Dyer. This is the LA Football Show, Trojans Huddle. Talk to y'all later in the week.